Your phone is not designed to inform you. It is designed to make you check it again in 4 minutes, whether or not anything new has happened. And the strange part is, you already know this, and it still works on you anyway. Think about the last time you picked up your phone without deciding to, not because you were expecting an important message, not because you needed information for a task. Your hand simply moved, unlocked the screen, and opened an app, all before your conscious mind had time to ask why. A few seconds later, nothing useful happened. You locked the phone again, and within minutes, you did the exact same thing. This happens dozens of times a day for most people, and almost none of it is a deliberate choice. So what's actually pulling your hand toward that screen over and over, faster than you can think to stop it? To understand this, you need to go back to a psychologist named B.F. Skinner, who ran experiments in the 1950s using pigeons in boxes with a lever the birds could press for food. Skinner discovered something that seemed small, but turned out to explain an enormous amount of human behavior. When the pigeons got food, every single time they pressed the lever, they pressed it steadily. And if the food stopped coming, they quickly gave up and stopped pressing. But when Skinner changed the reward schedule so that food arrived unpredictably, sometimes after one press, sometimes after 10, sometimes after none at all, something remarkable happened. The pigeons pressed the lever far more often, far more compulsively, and they kept pressing it long after the food stopped coming entirely. Skinner called this a variable ratio reinforcement schedule, and it produces the single most persistent, hardest to extinguish behavior pattern known in behavioral psychology. Predictable rewards create predictable habits. Unpredictable rewards create obsession. Your phone runs almost entirely on variable ratio reinforcement. Every time you open a social app, refresh an email inbox, or check a messaging platform, you do not know in advance whether something interesting will be there. Sometimes there is a message that matters. Sometimes there is nothing. Sometimes there is an overwhelming flood of notifications all at once. And this unpredictability is not an accident of technology. It is the exact same mechanism Skinner identified in his pigeons, deliberately engineered into the products you use daily, because product designers know that unpredictable rewards create far stronger compulsive checking behavior than predictable ones ever could. But knowing the reward is unpredictable does not fully explain why your brain finds that unpredictability so irresistible. For that, you need to understand what is actually happening chemically in your brain, and this is where neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz's research becomes essential. Schultz studied dopamine, a neurotransmitter long misunderstood as simply a pleasure chemical. His research on primates revealed something far more interesting. Dopamine is not released mainly when you receive a reward. It is released mainly in anticipation of a reward, especially when that reward is uncertain. Schultz discovered that dopamine neurons fire most intensely not when an expected reward arrives exactly as predicted, but when there is uncertainty about whether a reward will arrive at all. This is called a reward prediction error, and it means your brain's dopamine system is fundamentally built to respond to uncertainty itself, not to the reward. The anticipation, the not knowing, is the actual chemical hook, more powerful than the payoff itself. This is the deep dive that reframes your entire relationship with your phone. Every time you glance at a locked screen wondering if there is a notification, your brain is running a small prediction, and that prediction, precisely because it is uncertain, triggers a dopamine response before you have even unlocked the device. You are not checking your phone because you are addicted to what is on it. You are checking your phone because your brain has become addicted to the tiny moment of not knowing what's on it. This is why checking a phone that has 0 new notifications does not feel disappointing enough to stop the behavior. The dopamine spike already happened in the anticipation slightly before you even looked. Once you understand this mechanism, it becomes clear why these platforms are not accidentally addictive. They are engineered to be. This connects to research by sociologist Natasha Schüll, who spent years studying the design of slot machines in Las Vegas and how their mechanics were deliberately built to maximize what she called time on device. the total amount of time a person remains engaged, regardless of whether they are winning or losing. Schüll's research found that slot machine designers use variable reward timing, near-miss effects, and continuous engagement loops specifically because these mechanics keep players in what she termed the machine zone, a trance-like state where the goal shifts from the winning money to simply continuing the behavior itself. Former technology executives and designers have publicly acknowledged borrowing these exact same mechanics, infinite scroll feeds, pull to refresh gestures modeled explicitly on slot machine levers, and unpredictable notification timing when building the social platforms and apps you use every day. Your phone did not become compulsive by accident. It borrowed its psychological architecture directly from the gambling industry. Here is the counterintuitive twist that makes this even harder to escape than a normal habit. Most bad habits fade when the reward stops working, the way Skinner's pigeons eventually gave up pressing an empty lever, but variable ratio reinforcement does not follow that pattern. It is specifically the schedule most resistant to extinction, meaning the checking behavior can persist for a very long time, even after the rewards become rare, boring, or largely absent. This is why you can honestly feel bored by your phone, annoyed by what you find on it, even mildly resentful of the habit, and still pick it up compulsively minutes later. The behavior is no longer being driven by the content. It is being driven by an unpredictability loop your brain learned to chase months or years ago, and that loop does not require the reward to still be good. It only requires the outcome to still be uncertain. This also explains a pattern many people notice but rarely question: the fact that checking your phone during a boring or slightly uncomfortable moment feels almost involuntary, while checking it during a genuinely engaging activity barely crosses your mind. Uncertainty and dopamine anticipation are strongest exactly when your baseline stimulation is low. A quiet moment, a dull meeting, an uncomfortable silence all create a small gap your brain instinctively wants, filled with the possibility of something new, and your phone is the fastest, most reliable source of that possibility, even though the actual content behind it is rarely reliable at all. So what does this actually mean for how you use your phone, given that you cannot simply decide your way out of a dopamine prediction system that operates faster than conscious thought? The practical shift starts with recognizing that willpower is the wrong tool for this problem, because willpower operates at the level of conscious decision-making, while variable ratio reinforcement operates beneath it. What actually works, based on the same behavioral principles Skinner identified, is changing the schedule itself rather than trying to resist it moment to moment. Turning off non-essential notifications removes the unpredictable trigger entirely, converting an intermittent reward schedule back into something closer to a fixed, predictable one, which your brain finds far less compulsive. Physically placing your phone out of immediate reach during focused work increases the tiny bit of friction needed to interrupt the automatic reach, since the behavior is largely driven by habit loops that fire in specific contexts and locations. And deliberately building small windows of boredom back into your day, rather than filling every idle second with a screen, retrains your dopamine system to tolerate uncertainty without needing external stimulation to resolve it. But none of this requires deleting your phone or rejecting technology outright. It requires recognizing that the constant pull you feel is not a personal weakness. It is a precisely engineered response to one of the oldest and best documented mechanisms in behavioral psychology, refined by decades of research and deliberately built into the products competing for your attention every single day. Your phone is not designed to inform you. It is designed to make you check it again in 4 minutes, whether or not anything new has happened. Now you know why your hand keeps reaching for it before your mind even decides to. And now you know that the pull was never really about what's on the screen. It was always about what your brain could not stop wondering.